Welcome. Look, today we are completely abandoning those superficial hustle culture productivity hacks, right? We're not going to sit here and talk about time blocking or Pomodoro timers or study tips, no. Instead, we're taking a deep, psychologically immersive dive into the guilt, the sheer exhaustion, and honestly, the absolute mystery of procrastination. We're going to figure out why your brain so frequently rebels against your own best interests, and why that avoidance, the stuff you've been punishing yourself for years, might actually be a deeply ingrained, ancient emotional survival mechanism.
Okay, let's dive into this. It really brings us to the ultimate question, doesn't it? Why do we constantly choose momentary, fleeting relief right now, at the direct expense of our own future well-being? You know, it's so incredibly easy, and honestly culturally ingrained in us, to just label this behavior as simple laziness. But what we're actually witnessing here is a profound mystery of our ancient, evolved minds trying to operate in a deeply unnatural modern world.
Philosophers have been debating this for literally centuries. They famously call it akrasia, or the weakness of the will. It's basically defined as the failure to act on your best reasons. But here's the thing. Modern effective science frames this internal conflict completely differently. It's not a moral failing, it's not a defect in your character. It's a documented physiological state. It's this wild moment where your body literally freezes up and refuses to move forward, even though your conscious mind knows exactly what you should be doing.
Part 1. Anatomy of a threat. The millisecond appraisal. So, to really understand why this happens, we have to look at how a threat is actually built in the mind. See, the brain doesn't just look at a difficult task like, writing a massive report or studying for a final exam and think, oh, that's just work. No, in a fraction of a millisecond, it literally appraises that task as an impending physical danger. According to the appraisal theory, which was pioneered by researchers like Magda Arnold and Richard Lazarus, our brain evaluates a situation in these lightning-fast steps. First, we perceive the circumstance, right? Like staring at a blank document. Second, the brain appraises the event as bad and hard to avoid. And third, boom, it instantly triggers an action tendency. Literally, in an instant, that modern, perfectly harmless task is evaluated as a literal existential threat.
In the philosophy of emotion, this specific thing is known as the formal object. Basically, the formal object of fear is that which constitutes danger. And once your brain evaluates a stressful task, like an overflowing inbox, and assigns it that formal object of danger, well, it activates these deeply ingrained avoidance action tendencies. These are ancient, hardwired survival responses, and they completely, utterly overpower our conscious intentions and our logical planning.
Listen really closely to this definition from psychologist Richard Lazarus. He notes that emotion is a complex state, a combination of an action tendency, physiological change, and subjective affect. You see, these ancient systems inside us, they don't just give us a vague, uneasy feeling. They force a very real, immediate physical impulse. They literally flood your body with this overwhelming urge to just escape the discomfort of uncertainty or that terrifying fear of failure.
Part 2. The dopamine dilemma. Prefrontal cortex versus the now.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is it shows us the actual neurological battlefield going on right inside your head. It's essentially a massive battle of the future against the present moment, a neurological tug-of-war. On one side, you've got the highly evolved prefrontal cortex, which tries to guide our behavior by holding on to these long-term mental representations of our goals. But on the other side, we have our primitive, evolved affect programs. These are the ancient systems demanding immediate relief, triggering instant action tendencies to pull us far away from absolutely anything perceived as painful or dangerous.
So our brain desperately attempts to guide our behavior toward those beautiful long-term rewards using networks of dopamine fibers, which are heavily concentrated right there in the prefrontal cortex. This dopamine modulates our excitatory synapses, it impacts the efficiency of our working memory, and it basically tries its hardest to maintain our focus on long-term cognitive goals. But it is locked in this constant, absolutely exhausting battle against the loud, demanding, immediate emotional noise of the present moment.
And the deciding blow in this invisible battle usually comes down to what neuroscientist Antonio Damasio calls the somatic marker hypothesis. This theory basically suggests that our emotions simplify our decisions by instantly attaching a negative somatic marker to a difficult task. I mean, before you even have the time to consciously think about doing your work, your brain has already marked it as emotionally damaging. It hijacks your rationality completely, making you impatiently, almost desperately seek out deferred gratification somewhere else. Hello, doom scrolling.
Part 3. Emotional recalcitrance. The terrifying disconnect.
Which leads us directly to the terrifying disconnect that every single chronic procrastinator knows all too well. It's that agonizing, frustrating gap between our conscious judgment to do the work and our emotional perception that the work is somehow a threat to our very ego. In affective science, they call this emotional recalcitrance. It means experiencing an emotion that directly contradicts your active, conscious judgment. I really want to emphasize this because it completely rebrands that exhaustion of feeling stuck. Your personal struggle to start a project, it isn't a lack of discipline. It's a literal, clinical clash between your logic and your nervous system's desperate demand for emotional self-preservation.
To really wrap your head around this, imagine standing on one of those transparent glass platforms out over the Grand Canyon. Consciously, logically, you look at it and you judge that it's totally 100% safe. But emotionally, your body perceives a lethal, incredibly dangerous drop. The visceral panic you feel staring down through that glass floor is the exact same cognitive conflict you feel staring at a terrifyingly important deadline. Logically, yeah, it's safe. But emotionally, it feels completely lethal.
This emotional recalcitrance is just incredibly powerful because it gives your emotions what scientists call control precedence. Your active assent to do the work completely contradicts your passive emotional assent to flee the scene. These avoidance goals actually step in and preempt your access to memory, and they interrupt any competing thought processes. It literally shuts down your ability to focus, locking you into this haunting, exhausting, repeating cycle of intense avoidance, followed almost immediately by profound, crushing guilt.
Part 4. A survival mechanism misfire. The mind's desperate defense.
So, where does all this leave us? Well, we have to completely reframe procrastination. We have to start viewing it as an ancient survival strategy that simply, unfortunately, no longer fits the modern world. As the psychologist Paul Ekman states, emotions evolved for their adaptive value in dealing with fundamental life tasks. These basic affect programs inside us, they evolved millions of years ago to rapidly mobilize our physical resources so we could escape actual physical predators. But today, they misfire. There are no lions chasing us in the home office. There are only modern existential pressures, massive uncertainty, and looming deadlines.
This whole process is deeply tied to what enactivist philosophers call sense-making, which is the act of assessing the environment to promote self-maintenance and improve viability. Ultimately, your procrastination is just your organism engaging in self-organization. It's a misguided but deeply human attempt to retreat to safety and preserve your emotional well-being against what it perceives as an absolutely insurmountable threat.
Which leaves us with this final, somewhat haunting reflection. When you find yourself paralyzed by a task, just staring blankly at a glowing screen, you really have to ask yourself, is this actually a failure of character, or is it simply your own mind's desperate, deeply ingrained attempt to protect itself from profound discomfort? Understanding this doesn't magically erase the deadline, of course, but it just might erase the guilt. And maybe, just maybe, it can give you the self-compassion you need to finally begin.